Hey there, for those for the first time here, my name is Zach. I'm 23 years old Russian who left Russia because of the war against Ukraine, and today we are going to observe what has happened in Russia in the past couple of days. Without further ado, let's get to it. Since the beginning of the war, Russia has been claiming that Ukraine is full of Nazis and that Ukraine needs to be denazified by Russia, by the people who are the most non-Nazi in the world. I really have to disagree that Russia is non-Nazi country, in the meaning that Russia is extremely xenophobic to a lot of other cultures, which are actually a part of the Russian culture, part of the Russian society, because Russia has a big Muslim community. 14.5 million of people in Russia are Muslim, which makes it to 10% of the whole country's population. And because of this, I think this is outrageous that Russia is prohibiting in some places to wear Muslim clothing for people who are identify themselves as Muslim. For example, in college in Moscow Oblast, kids were literally prohibited to wear any Muslim clothing, including niqab or hijab or anything else. Lilia Rahmatulina, just a kid who wanted to get some education, and her father, they've decided to attend this college, which is governmental college. They came to the admissions office and literally asked, can Lilia actually wear niqab or hijab or other religious clothing inside of college while attending classes? And the admissions office were like, yeah, sure, we are people in Russia are really tolerant to other religions and other people from different cultures. And apparently when it was time to go to classes, Lilia was literally kicked out of the class for just having a piece of cloth over her head. Her father was trying to sue the college for this, but apparently he got no success in the Russian court system, because it seems like that Russia is getting more and more right, meaning like politically spectrum right in its ideology. Russia is developing more and more hate towards immigrants, especially from ex-Soviet republics, from Uzbekistan, from Tajikistan, especially to Muslims. And apparently in a lot of regions of Russia, people especially from Uzbekistan are being prohibited to work in special spheres and special sectors of economy. For example, like in services, in taxi, in food industries. In the Russian parliament, they even had discussions about prohibition of wearing hijabs in public. This is just outrageous to me, because the country that has 10% of its population with the main religion of Islam, they just want to prohibit them to practice their religion, which doesn't even bother anyone. It's just because they are extremely xenophobic to other cultures. And this country has decided to go and to denazify another country, okay? I really don't think this is the way denazifying works. If you have stuff like this in your own country. And it's funny because there is literally a conflict of interests. There is Putin with his kind of like, I would say, Soviet Union views on the nation. He doesn't care whether the nation is full of Slavic white people with blue eyes or it's full of immigrants from Uzbekistan. It's important for him to keep power, and for keeping power, he needs more people in the country who would give birth to children, the children would grow, and they would fight his wars. While on the other side, there is a lot of Z activists who are extremely conservative, mostly far-right people. For example, from like a battalion that fights in Ukraine called Rusich, has been fighting there since 2014, got a bunch of tattoos with like swastikas, with Hitler, and eventually they hate this, and there is just this huge conflict between Z people inside of it. And at some point, I think this is really going to come out into something big inside of Russia, considering that the same Chechnya, they got so much independence now inside of Russia, they literally can do anything. They got their own police, they even have its own border. You have to literally go through a checking when you get into Chechnya, which is officially territory of Russia. You have to go almost like through the passport control. They get extremely angry about it in a country that promised them to give them as much freedom as they want to. They are almost being prohibited to wear hijabs or niqabs or any other Muslim clothing in public. This is Danny Milokhin, another TikToker about my age, maybe a little older. And apparently, you know, he's been just a regular dude filming TikToks for mostly children, got extremely popular in Russia. After the war started, he came to the United States, and on one of the live streams with his friend, he decided to sing a Ukrainian anthem with his friend because his friend asked for it. At some point, he came back from the United States to Russia, which is a big mistake. And apparently, all the Z propagandists got extremely angry at him for doing what he has done. And apparently, knowing how much influence he has among younger teenagers, and apparently, he can change a lot of opinions and put him against the government, basically. They've started to threaten him with a conscriptional service, which he is eligible by law. And apparently, I think 1 or 2 days after he came to Russia, he has left to Dubai, and as far as I remember, never came back. The reason I'm telling you about this is because his stepfather, who lives in the south of Russia in Anapa, got attacked for his son's TikToks, and basically for his son's position in supporting Ukraine. Here is a video filmed by his stepbrother and his stepfather after a cocktail of Molotov was thrown into their house in Anapa.
Славик, чем помочь?
Я сварк несу.
This is the stepfather of Dani Milokhin, who filmed this video in the next morning and just explained the whole situation, that they were literally attacked by the cocktail Molotov.
Ну это коктейль Молотова вот.
And here's the video in the next morning from the place.
Прилетела, короче, бутылка, вот убираемся, блин. И что хочу показать, вот нашел в этой банке.
He says one of the cans that was left at the place where the cocktail Molotov landed was basically this little tiny piece of paper.
Пожалуйста, вот тебе, твари эти, Милохин на СВО.
It says Milokhin na SVO, which means literally Dani Milokhin should be sent to the special military operation.
А семейка в ад.
And then says Семейка в ад, which is kind of funny because Семейка is basically a family, should go to hell. That's what they say. And this is only because this guy's stepson has recorded not even a TikTok, on one of the live streams. He sang the anthem of Ukraine. And apparently now he's a national traitor and a national enemy. And even his stepfather is being attacked in his own house by some kind of Z activists. Or maybe it's even police or FSB, who knows. And apparently, as far as I know, I think a week later after this, like maybe 1 day or 2 days, the stepfather of Daniil Milokhin also has left Russia. Apple is being extremely hypocritical. Firstly, they have deleted a song from Apple Music that is one of the main symbols of the Russian opposition. The band called Pornofilmy, the song called Это пройдет, translates as I will pass. It literally has lyrics about Putin. One day, the yesterday's dictator is going to be just one old dead man in morgue. And apparently, by the order of the Russian authority, Apple Music had to delete this song from its platform. And for those who don't believe, here's another proof. Here's an article from TechRadar.pro. It says Apple keeps removing VPN apps in Russia, and the toll is worse than we thought. And apparently, about 100 of VPNs, which are not made in Russia and which are not controlled by the Russian government, are being deleted on Apple, on the Americans company platform that literally quit Russia. They do not operate anymore in Russia, but so far, people who have iPhones in Russia, they still can download Apple's applications and use it in Russia, but accept the VPNs that may give them access to free information, that might give them access to information that the Russian government doesn't want them to see. But Apple, hypocritically following the Russian government's order to delete VPNs which are developed outside of Russia and not under the control of the Russian Federation. Moreover, Apple has paid a lot of money in fines. Russia has fined Apple for all kind of crap about like posting false information about the war in Ukraine, and Apple just went along and paid the fines. Billions of rubles were paid towards Russia by Apple. They didn't even recover the market for themselves, the Russian market for themselves. I don't really understand why would Apple do this. But apparently that's what's been happening. Apple been extremely hypocritical. And I think there should be some discussion about it. It's funny how Russia is trying to bring up the birth rates in Russia. They literally to make women give birth to more children. And one of the hilarious initiatives the Russian government came up with is prohibiting building small apartments for one person only. So apparently, like studios are now getting prohibited to be built in Moscow, and now they are thinking of expanding this prohibition for the other regions. And apparently, you as a developer cannot build an apartment which is smaller than 28 square meters, because apparently it's not enough for two people to live in and for them to consider that kind of space enough for having a baby. Moreover, Russia is literally prohibiting child-free as a ideology. Basically, any kind of propaganda again. I have to put those quotes because every time Russia says something about propaganda of LGBT or propaganda of child-free or propaganda of anything else, I don't think they even mean the word propaganda. They just say like, we hate this. That's why we prohibit this. It's not propaganda of anything. It's just Russia doesn't like this. That's why it's prohibited. And so basically, Russia doesn't like women to have happy lives, to be able to make choice whether to have children or not. And apparently because of this, Russian parliament literally accepted the law that will fine people or organizations or medias that will share the benefits of being child-free, not having children, or any kind of showing advantages of happy life without children, and or even mentioned in the word child-free. It's literally a crime now. You can get fined. At least you're not gonna go to jail, thanks God. But if you are getting a lot of fines, they're gonna stack up. You can pay them. You might go to jail. So apparently, yeah, it's a crime to be child-free right now in Russia. Just because Putin needs more babies to fight in the future wars, because Russia is dying out. The sponsor of today's video is Ground News. Ground News is the first media comparison platform that allows you to compare how same news are being differently portrayed by different media agencies, whether it's left-leaning medias or right-wing medias. Sometimes it's actually really interesting to see how some of the news are getting kind of blind spotted by different sides. For example, a couple hours ago, Trump says that Ukraine is dead and dismisses its defense against Russia's invasion. And eventually, it seems like out of all medias who covered this news in the past 3 hours, only 14% of them are the one that are recognized as right. So it seems like only AP News, ABC News, US News, something like Boston Herald I've never heard of, they all mentioned that. Like here, US News wrote like Trump says Ukraine is dead and dismisses his defense against Russia's invasion. And you can go and read all those articles. You can sort them out by their ideological place on the political spectrum, whether they're left, right, or center. So here we have one from the Boston Herald that is recognized as leaning right. So far, it seems like it's a blind spot for the right, and I guess the right media are not really proud of Trump saying this. Having a subscription on Ground News allows you to see who actually owns the media. It is really interesting to see and compare different biases of different medias. It helps you to see the picture, what's happening in the world more clear. That's why I think getting a subscription on Ground News is vital to see the clear picture, to see what's being blind spotted by the right or left. I think the Ground News is a great project, which is actually founded by an ex-NASA engineer, and it's worth of your time and money. Its goal is really clear: to help people to understand politics and news better. Put the video on pause, scan the QR code over here to check out Ground News, and come back to see more news from Russia. Even though Russia is trying to block YouTube, not to let Russian people to watch channels of oppositionists who oppose Kremlin's regime, or not to see the harsh reality about the war in Ukraine. Nevertheless, Kremlin literally still owns a YouTube channel, official channel of the president of Russia. It's literally called Kremlin. It has 246k subscribers, almost 1,000 videos, and they still continue to publish videos. One video about Putin's nuclear threat was published 5 hours ago. Another one, the 4th Eurasian Women's Forum, where Putin is for some reason, is the main guest, was published 6 days ago, 8 days ago, 9 days ago. And apparently, one of the journalists asked Dmitry Peskov, who is the press secretary of Putin, why you're blocking YouTube, but you still continue publishing the videos on YouTube about Putin. And apparently he just said, well, we have to use all possible tools to spread the true information about Putin's activity as a president of Russia. So apparently, yeah, they want to use this as a Kremlin propaganda tool, considering it's mostly in Russian, to maybe influence people outside of Russia. Some of the people who are still in Russia and have access to YouTube, and it's not really slow. It's so hypocritical. You prohibit your own people to use YouTube, but at the same time, you still try to use YouTube as a tool to promote basically Kremlin's propaganda. This is quite funny. So this is Ramzan Kadyrov, who almost like a month ago, like 3 weeks ago, he got a Cybertruck, and he was saying that this is a gift from Elon Musk. Thank you so much, Elon Musk, my brother, for such a great gift. And they have installed some kind of machine gun on top of it, and they have claimed that it's going to be sent to the front lines of the special military operation. Kadyrov was so happy. He drove all over Chechnya in his new Cybertruck. But recently, Elon Musk said, well, you know what? I haven't sent you any gifts. You know, I'm not related to it anyhow. And what even happened later is that Cybertruck got disconnected from basically all its functionality. Tesla somehow has the capability of shutting down your car remotely. And Kadyrov went nuts about Elon Musk. Here he writes, "Некрасиво поступил Elon Musk. Elon Musk behaved really not in a good way. He gave me this really expensive present from his soul, and then he turned it off remotely. I bet you remember his gift, Cybertruck, on top of which we set a machine gun and sent it to the special military operation. The car was doing perfectly with its tasks, showing maneuverability and good protection of people inside of it, which I really doubt. I've seen videos ever showing that even 9mm cannot be stopped by this. You know, I'm pretty sure the AK bullet will go through easily through Cybertruck door." Ramzan continues, "Recently, Musk decided to turn off the Cybertruck remotely. This is not how the man should behave. We had to tow this iron horse. How are you doing this, Elon? Do you really think this is the way it should be?" So I think Ramzan Kadyrov had an affair with Elon Musk somewhere in behind of his mind, and now it's like, you know, when somebody breaks up and, you know, they try to take a gift from a partner that they gave him during the relationship, and Kadyrov is so unhappy because his favorite toy, Cybertruck, is now being taken by Elon Musk from him, just basically put it in a bunch of metal because it cannot be operated anymore because Elon Musk turned it off. And well, apparently, I think it wasn't really a gift as Kadyrov was trying to portray it, considering the fact that it was basically, as soon as Kadyrov said it was a gift, it was turned off. This is a really funny document signed by Mishustin, the head of the Russian government. And apparently, this is a list of foreign countries and territories that force destructive neoliberal ideological ideas that contradict traditional Russian moral values. Apparently, the list of countries is pretty big, and, well, nobody is surprised about Austria or Australia, but among the countries which I was quite surprised is Albania, Andorra, Bagama Islands, Bulgaria, which is weird. I don't think Bulgaria is really the most so-called woke country in the world, but apparently even Bulgaria was recognized as a country that contradicts to the Russian moral values. Greece, Cyprus, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, Malta, Romania, North Macedonia. Here, that's hilarious. It says Taiwan, and then in brackets it says Kitai, which translates as China. So they literally say Taiwan as a separate country violates Russian traditional values. But then they were like, well, yeah, it's a separate country, but in brackets it's still China. I'm remind you, this is literally an official document of the Russian government, signed by the head of the Russian government. Well, Ukraine, okay, no surprise. Montenegro, which is interesting. Montenegro, I would never think of this as a country that contradicts the Russian moral values. I thought they hate gay people as much as Serbians do or Russians. And yeah, apparently those are, and Japan. Apparently those are the least 53 countries which values contradict to the Russian traditional values that Putin loves to talk about so much. Russian traditional values. Yeah, that's tells the guy who literally was cheating to his wife when she was like 45 and pregnant with a 19-year-old gymnast, meaning Alina Kabayeva, who literally has a bunch of wives, never goes to church, pretty much saint in almost kind of possible way. He claims himself as an Orthodox Christian, right? So yeah, I really don't think this is I don't even know what to tell you about this, to be honest. This is just hilarious. I wanted to share this with you. This is a member of the Russian parliament, a guy who never speaks bad about the Putin or, basically Russian authority. He's a part of it. And he's been talking about the theory of evolution of Darwin. And apparently right now in Russia, they talk about canceling this theory in the student books for children, in biological books. And in this video, Milonov is basically coming to a conclusion that he may agree to some part with Darwin's theory. So let's hear in what aspects can he agree to this.
Ну, как минимум, буду согласен, конечно, со стариком Дарвином.
To a small degree, I will agree with an old man Darwin.
В части поляков, эстонцев и латышей.
About Polish, Estonians, and Latvians.
Они точно произошли от макак.
They truly came up from monkeys. They truly, their ancestors were truly monkeys.
Обезьянов или дождевых червей.
From worms, he said.
Мы, русские, белорусы и наши союзники-друзья.
But we Russians and Belarusians and our allies and friends,
Божьи твари.
We came out from God. God is our origin. That's great how he's trying to put down Poles in Baltic states for developing from monkeys, while Russians and Belarusians and its allies, I guess, like Iranians and North Koreans, are truly originate from God. This guy is hilarious, by the way. He was in Russian politics he's been in Russian politics for a long time. He used to be actually working for quite a liberal oppositionist in the 90s, but then as soon as Putin came to power, he turned into an extremely pro-Putinist politician. Milonov is his surname. This is a really small protest in front of the Ministry of Defense building in Moscow. Mostly, all of them are women who are protesting against mobilizing their fathers, their husbands, their brothers. Apparently, they had to say here demobilization, meaning bring our men back. Here, a little girl stands with a paper saying "Верните папу, жду 2 года," which means return my father. I'm waiting for him for 2 years. And apparently, it's been 2 years since the Russian mobilization in September 2022. Almost 300,000 Russians has been mobilized, and almost none of them were able to return back to their homes. There were no other mobilization, so basically there was no rotation in the army. All of them has been there for 2 years, and apparently there is a little discontent as growing with this happening. And some women who actually has more balls than a lot of Russian men came out to the building of the Ministry of Defense and protested about it. Some of them got later arrested that same day. It was on September 19th, as far as I remember. And apparently 2 journalists were arrested. Shut down, those ladies were trying to build kind of like camp around the Ministry of Defense and even claim that they are not going to eat unless their men are returned back to their homes. But didn't have any success at all. Apparently a couple of them are arrested and the whole process was shut down. Here's a video from later in the day when those ladies were actually arrested. This is from the inside the police bus. A little lady is debating with a policeman and saying our men are doing their duty over there for 2 years for you, because meaning that police has never really been involved in, in the war. Even though Russia has so much police, so much potential men they could send to front lines who actually know how to handle a gun, blah blah blah, but they need to be there to protect Putin from his own people. Yeah, just look at those. I mean, look at those women. It's like, this one is probably like waiting for a husband. Look, there is a little girl, like I would say probably 18-year-old, and she also got arrested for just demanding like her father probably or brother to be returned back. She says our relatives, our like brothers, fathers, husbands are doing the duty, and you are arresting their mothers and wives for this. That's the moment when they were arrested.
Профилактическая беседа.
Вовремя приехала.
Да.
At least 14 Ghanaian migrants were scammed by the Russian government, promised work in Russia for really good money, ended up signing papers in the Russian language, which they did not know. Signing papers you don't understand is never a good idea. And apparently, they've signed a contract with the Russian military, which is kind of sad and funny at the same time, but now they are crying, asking for help to let them get out of the Russian army.
Lured by promises of secure, well-paying jobs in Russia, these men left their families behind with hopes of building a better future. But what was meant to be a life-changing opportunity turned out to be their worst nightmare.
Again, an uncompleted building, and then this is one of the buildings they destroyed.
Okay.
Let me show you around. Matt will go on man. Check inside, first will go on man. Check inside.
It all began on Sunday, August 4, 2024, when the men said their goodbyes and boarded a plane filled with dreams of success and providing for their loved ones. They arrived in Russia on August 6 through Togo. Their hearts were filled with anticipation, but from the moment they touched down, things took a chilling turn. Upon arrival, they were whisked off to Kostroma, a city in western Russia, to sign what they thought would be employment contracts. Instead, they found themselves faced with a grim reality. The young men say they were deceived by a contractor who had promised them these opportunities, a man known as Abraham Wache, popularly known as one-man supporter in Ghana. Abraham, the man they had trusted, now seemed to be their worst enemy.
Abraham Wache, popularly known as one-man supporter. He brought us here.
Right.
He told us there is a job opportunity over here in Russia, which is security work and then agriculture.
Okay.
So we paid for our own plane ticket and then visa fee. The military people brought us a contract to sign. And then before, he told us that it's a security work, but we'll be trained by the military.
Right.
So when the military people brought the contract, we thought it's the training that they are coming to train us. The contract, we are coming. The day we were signing, he was not around. He was in Moscow. So we called him and told.
Yeah, well, apparently they just got scammed by another guy who is supposed to be take care of them from Ghana too, and apparently he just made them sign a contract with the Russian military. I don't even know whether that guy understood what he was doing. I'm pretty much sure maybe he was on the percentage on the Russian military, but apparently right now 14 people from Ghana are in the Russian military against their will, and they can't really quit. It was a problem for some Indians who signed a contract to quit the Russian army. Modi himself had to fly to see Putin in Moscow to negotiate the release of those, and apparently he got what he wanted to. I wonder if the president of Ghana will have to fly directly to Kremlin, to Moscow, to negotiate the release of his citizens from the Russian military. In St. Petersburg, in the cultural capital of Russia, where most of intelligentsia lives, this 29-year-old guy decided to have some fun time on Saturday night and went to a bar or to a club and met this older lady who seemed pretty attractive. And apparently she wasn't really talkative. She was showing a lot of gestures. As it later appeared, she was actually almost deaf. She couldn't hear what he was saying. But he thought maybe she's kind of playing with him, without doing much of gestures. But what happened is, they get back to his place. They get a couple of drinks, and she's still being silent. And at some point, he started to hear some weird noise, kind of like bip, bip, bip. Maybe it was something in his apartment or something. But he started to think that lady, a 41-year-old lady who's actually deaf, appeared to be deaf. Just, she didn't have anything. But he started to think that she is spying for Ukraine. He started to think that she is there on a mission to do something to this guy who is studying to become a military soldier in Russia. And apparently he started to literally beat her up to the point that she died. Apparently the guy was so paranoid about the Ukrainian spies all over, he literally just beat up a random lady from a bar for thinking she's spying for Ukraine. It's crazy. It just shows how much paranoid those people are nowadays. And apparently they can think the so-called traitors in every single human being, even the lady they met in the bar. Wild. Do you see this Russian Mi-8 helicopter that got burned? Would you guess who were the people who set it on fire? You'd never guess, but those are two 16-year-olds who are studying in Russian high school and who were promised to be paid $20,000 for going into the territory of the military and just setting it on fire, and eventually they got arrested. I don't really know whether it was just motivation coming out from the money perspective, whether it was just something like a political statement. There is no information about it. Maybe it was both. But apparently, yes, two 16-year-olds just burned a helicopter of Russian military, and yeah, well, thanks, I guess. My favorite character of the Russian Orthodox Church, Andrei Tkachov, one of the most Z priests I have ever heard or known in my life. Here, he has a really interesting statement for you ladies to hear.
Что женщине дана утроба, чтобы рожать.
A woman is given a womb to give a birth.
И грудь дана, чтобы кормить.
Breast is being given to a woman to feed the baby.
Она всю жизнь прожила, не кормила грудью.
If she lived the whole life and never fed a baby with her breast,
Зачем эта грудь ей нужна?
why does she even need this breast?
Лучше бы ты была мальчиком.
It's better for you to be a man.
Ну правильно. Ну зачем бесполезное все?
Why do you need it? It's useless anyway. Yeah, but basically, if you haven't born any more children for Putin, you are useless as a lady. Why? You wasted your life. It would be even better if you would just be born as a man, take a gun and go kill some Ukrainians, right? Yeah, this is apparently Andrei Tkachov, my favorite. I can't even observe this with a straight face, because this is just such absurdity, and it's coming out from this big mouthpiece of the Russian Orthodox Church, and it's quite hilarious. I wonder if any of the ladies actually decide, okay, I've listened to Andrei Tkachov, the smartest man on the earth, and now I'm gonna use my womb and I'm gonna use my breast in the right way. Jeez. Western citizens will be banned from adopting Russian children. This is a new bill that will basically prohibit people who are citizens of the countries where the change of a gender or a sex is allowed are not going to be allowed to adopt any children from Russia. Among the countries that are going to be prohibited from adopting Russian children is Australia, Austria, Argentina, Belgium, Britain, Germany, Denmark, Iceland, Spain, Italy, Canada, Norway, Finland, Switzerland, Estonia, and other countries where the gender change is allowed. United States is not in the list because United States were banned from adopting children even long time before. There was some kind of a case where one of the adoptees was basically not murdered. It was a accident. It was left in a hot car on a hot day and just died of a overheating or something else. And apparently, yeah, it was in 2012 that U.S. citizens were prohibited from adopting Russian children. So yeah, apparently, yeah, no more babies given away to other countries. No, we need all the babies we can have to raise them up for the future wars. Putin has forgotten to take his schizo pills and apparently came up with more threats of using nuclear weapon to the Western countries who provide help for Ukraine.
Оставляем за собой право применить ядерное оружие
We have a right to use a nuclear weapon
в случае агрессии против России и Белоруссии,
in case of aggression towards Russia and Belarus
как участника союзного государства.
as part of our ally agreement.
С белорусской стороной, с президентом Беларуси все эти вопросы согласованы.
Everything was negotiated with the president of Belarus, Lukashenko.
В том числе, если противник, используя обычное оружие,
Also, if the enemy is using regular weapon, meaning not nuclear weapons,
создает критическую угрозу
is creating a critical danger
нашему суверенитету.
to our sovereignty.
В завершение отмечу, что все уточнения являются глубоко выверенными
In conclusion, I'll tell you that it's all calculated
и соразмерными современным военным угрозам
and it's all proportional to the upcoming danger that is threatening Russia
и рискам в отношении Российской Федерации.
and risks
Давайте
towards Russia.
приступим к работе. Слово министру обороны Андрею Арамычу.
Basically, he just threatened the Western countries who are providing help for Ukraine, not with nuclear weapons, but with regular weapons with, like, I don't know, shadow missiles or, HIMARSs. So basically, if Ukraine is going to use this long-range Western weapons on the territory of Russia, Russia will keep its right to use nuclear weapons. Well, good luck. In my opinion, it's all bold threats. No one in the Russian government truly believes Putin is ever going to use nuclear weapons, just because knowing how much in trouble he's going to be after this. The Russian government has released a plan for the next year's budget, and apparently 40% of the whole national budget is going to go towards military. This is 725% more than the money that is planning to be spent on education, and almost 3.5 times more than the money that is being planned to spend on the healthcare. This is a message from a chat of police department in Yakutia, really far east of Russia, and apparently they are this is the administration of the whole chat. They are asking their colleagues to share the information that the amount of money people would receive signing up a contract with the Russian military has increased. And apparently it's important to share this information with the people who they literally quote have a useless way of life, who drink alcohol. Basically, they said that alcoholics are wasting their lives and it would be better wasting it on the battlefields of Ukraine. They said there are opportunities to change their lives and future. Also send it to local village groups. We're going to answer the questions on this number, blah, blah, blah. So basically they just said, okay, alcoholics who just drink alcohol and do nothing useful for the society, come to the front lines. You're going to change your life and your future to the better. Sounds like a kind of like a sketchy thing, I think. You'll get a couple of $1,000 and you're giving up your life for this. Not a good exchange in my opinion. 5 graders from Donbass who were extremely brainwashed by the Russian propaganda are now playing Russian soldiers and building so-called block posts, so-called like checkpoints for the people, checking the cars with not real guns, thankfully. Apparently that's the reality of the childhood in Donbass nowadays. I'm staying here every day. How old are you? I'm 11, and that looks like their checkpoint by the road. He's asking who do you want to be in the future. I want to be a tank operator, because my uncle is a tank operator. We want to support the military. We stay here in summer and winter. And this is grandma, one of the guys. She says that when the war started, her grandson Dima, he started to watch a lot of news. We bought him uniform, and he started to greet soldiers next to the road. She says doesn't matter what kind of weather conditions, he stays there all the time. It's so sad to see the kids being brainwashed like this. I really hope something good came out of them. Well, you know, never, don't forget, before I turned 14, I was extremely Z, because I mostly just watch Russian TV as a main source of internet, as a main source of information. But apparently, I mean, even in the people who are extremely brainwashed in a childhood, there is hope, especially in kids. On this sad note, we are finishing the video. Don't forget to support Ukraine. There's also ways to support the channel. Also, don't forget to check out Ground News. I really like their service, and I actually use it myself a lot. So yeah, thanks again, and see you in the next ones. Bye.